The coffee shop smelled of burnt espresso and desperation. My desperation. I wiped down the counter for the 5th time that hour, my fingers raw from the sanitizer. The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly. 10 more minutes until my 12-hour shift ended. 10 more minutes until I could rush home to Lily, my 3-year-old daughter, and relieve Mrs. Patel from babysitting duties. The door chimed, and a gust of autumn air swept in, carrying with it the scent of expensive cologne, sandalwood, and something darker, more primal. I didn't look up immediately. Late-night customers were usually drunk college students or insomniacs seeking caffeine. Neither tipped well. "We're closing in 10 minutes, I said, still focused on a stubborn coffee stain. Silence. Then, the soft rustle of what could only be an obscenely expensive suit. I raised my eyes and felt my heart stutter. He stood there, tall, imposing, unnervingly still. His charcoal suit fit him with precision that spoke of a tailor who charged more than my monthly rent. Dark hair, styled with careless perfection, framed features that belonged in a Renaissance painting, all sharp angles and shadows. But it was his eyes that froze me in place. Gray, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. They assessed me with the detached interest of a collector, appraising a new acquisition. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him, one by the door, another scanning the nearly empty cafe. Bodyguards. I'd seen enough movies to recognize the bulges beneath their jackets. Coffee, black. His voice was quiet, yet it filled the space between us. It wasn't a request. My hands trembled as I reached for a cup. For here or to go? Here. He moved to the corner table, the one with the best view of both the entrance and the back exit. Of course he did. I brought his coffee, setting it down without meeting his gaze. $2.50. He didn't touch the money I'd placed on the table. Instead, he slid a $100 bill toward me. Keep it. I can't break this. My voice sounded small, even to my own ears. A slight curve of his lips, not quite a smile. I didn't ask for change. I should have walked away then, should have taken the money and retreated behind my counter. Instead, I made the first of many mistakes. Why would you pay $100 for a $2 coffee? Those storm cloud eyes locked onto mine. Perhaps I'm paying for the company. The cafe closes in 5 minutes. Then we'd better make those 5 minutes count. He gestured to the chair across from him. Not an invitation, a command. I glanced at the clock, thought of Lily waiting at home, thought of the bills piling up, the rent past due, the electricity notice with its bold red warning. $100 would keep the lights on for another week. I sat. "What's your name?" he asked, not touching his coffee. "Emma." I didn't offer my last name. "Emma." He tested it on his tongue, as if tasting an exotic fruit. "You look tired, Emma." I straightened my spine. 12-hour shifts will do that, and yet you work them. Why? The same reason anyone works. I need the money. His gaze traveled over my face, lingering on the dark circles under my eyes, the chapped lips, the hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail. I resisted the urge to smooth down my coffee-stained apron. A single mother, I assume? It wasn't a question. My blood chilled. "How did you—" "The faded mark of a ring on your finger. The way your eyes check the clock constantly. The formula stain on your sleeve that you tried to wash out." He spoke with quiet certainty. "A struggling single mother working double shifts in a coffee shop in this part of town. Life has not been kind to you, has it, Emma?" I stood abruptly. "We're closed now." He didn't move. "Sit down, Emma. I need to get home to my daughter." "Ah, yes. Your daughter." He sipped his coffee, grimaced slightly, then set it aside. "How old is she?" I shouldn't have answered. 3. A difficult age. They need so much attention. He studied me. "Who watches her while you're here? That's none of your business." Fear prickled along my spine. Everything in this neighborhood is my business. He leaned forward, just slightly, but his presence seemed to grow, filling the small cafe. "Including you and your daughter." The bodyguard by the door shifted, reminding me that we weren't alone. The remaining customer, an old man with a newspaper, hurriedly left money on his table and scurried out. "I don't even know who you are," I whispered. "No, you don't." He reached into his jacket, I flinched and produced a business card. Simple, cream-colored, with only a name embossed in dark ink. Alexander Vega. I didn't take the card. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he offered it suggested it should. "You're new to this area," he stated. I nodded reluctantly. 6 months. "That explains it." He placed the card on the table between us. "Take it, you'll need it someday." "I won't." But even as I said it, my fingers itched to grab it, to understand why this man commanded such an atmosphere of danger and power. Alexander Vega's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "Walk me out, Emma." It wasn't a request. My legs moved before my brain could protest. Outside, the night air hit me like a slap. A sleek black car idled at the curb, its engine a low, predatory purr. One bodyguard opened the rear door while the other scanned the street. "One last question, Emma." Alexander turned to me, his face half illuminated by the streetlight. "The father of your child, where is he?" The question knocked the wind from me. "Gone." "Dead?" "Just gone." I wrapped my arms around myself. He left when I told him I was pregnant. Something flashed in those gray eyes, a storm breaking. "His name?" "Why do you care?" "His name, Emma." The softness in his voice made it more frightening, not less. "I need to go home." His hand caught my wrist, not painfully, but with unmistakable strength. "Tell me his name," said the Mafia boss. And in that moment, the title crystallized in my mind with absolute certainty. "David," I whispered, the name like ash in my mouth. "David Mercer." Alexander released my wrist, his expression unreadable. "Go home to your daughter, Emma." He slipped another $100 bill into my apron pocket. "Find better work. This place is beneath you." I backed away, confusion mingling with fear. "I don't understand." "You will." He entered the car, but before the door closed, added, "Lock your doors tonight, Emma." The black car glided away, leaving me trembling on the sidewalk, clutching his business card without remembering when I'd picked it up. I ran all the way home. Mrs. Patel was asleep on my couch when I burst through the door, my chest heaving. She startled awake, her lined face creasing with concern. "Emma, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile. "Just didn't want to be late. How was Lily?" "An angel, as always." She gathered her things. "She's been asleep since 8. I paid Mrs. Patel, wincing as I handed over the last of my cash. Tomorrow's problem. I had enough worries tonight. After she left, I triple-checked the locks, then went to Lily's room. My daughter slept peacefully in her second-hand crib, her dark curls splayed against the pillow. I touched her cheek, soft as flower petals. "I'll keep you safe," I whispered, though from what, or whom, I wasn't sure. Sleep evaded me. I sat by the window of our tiny apartment, staring at Alexander Vega's card in the glow of the streetlight. No phone number, no company name, just a name and a presence that had filled the cafe like smoke, and he knew David's name now. Why did that terrify me so much? Morning came with harsh light, and the realization that I was late for my second job at the diner. I scrambled to get Lily ready, cursing under my breath as I dialed Mrs. Patel. "I'm so sorry, but can you take her again today? The diner called me in early and—" "Of course, dear." Her kind voice soothed my frayed nerves. "Bring her over." I dressed Lily in her warmest clothes. Autumn was turning bitter early this year, and hurried down the 4 flights of stairs to Mrs. Patel's apartment. The street was unusually quiet. Neighbors who normally nodded in greeting kept their heads down, hurrying to their destinations. An oppressive silence hung in the air, as if the entire block was holding its breath. As I approached Mrs. Patel's door, an elderly man who lived next door caught my arm. "Be careful, miss," he muttered, eyes darting around. "Something happened last night." My heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" He leaned closer. "The Vega family. They came through here after midnight. Every business on Marshall Street got a visit." His voice dropped even lower. "They say David Mercer was found in the river this morning." The world tilted beneath my feet. I clutched Lily tighter. "Who's David Mercer?" I asked, my voice hollow. The old man shrugged. "Some small-time drug dealer, from what I hear. Owed money to the wrong people." He studied my face. "You okay, miss? You've gone white as a sheet." I nodded mechanically and knocked on Mrs. Patel's door. desperate to hand over Lily and process what I'd just heard. David was dead, found in the river hours after I'd given his name to Alexander Vega. "Tell me his name," the Mafia boss had said, and by dawn, the streets were silent with fear. But I'd known nothing about David's life after he left me. Nothing about drugs or debts or the Vega family. It was coincidence. It had to be. The diner was buzzing with whispered conversations when I arrived, 20 minutes late. My boss, a surly man named Frank, barely noticed, too engrossed in a hushed discussion with the cook. I tied on my apron with trembling hands, catching fragments of their conversation. Entire operation wiped out overnight. Vega doesn't mess around when it comes to something about a woman and a child. I dropped a stack of menus and they fell silent, turning to stare at me. "Sorry," I mumbled, bending to gather them. Frank squinted at me. "You look like hell, Emma. You sick or something?" "Just tired." "Yeah, well, join the club." He jerked his chin toward the dining area. Table 6 has been waiting. I moved through my shift in a daze, spilling coffee and mixing up orders. My mind replayed last night on an endless loop, the storm-gray eyes, the quiet command in his voice. "Tell me his name." And now David was dead. I was wiping down table 9 when the diner's door opened. The bell's cheerful jingle contrasted with the sudden, suffocating silence that fell over the room. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. The expensive cologne, sandalwood, and danger reached me before I turned. Alexander Vega stood in the entrance, today in a navy suit that made his eyes appear almost silver in the diner's fluorescent lighting. One bodyguard remained outside, visible through the glass door. The other stood just behind Alexander, scanning the diner with practiced efficiency. "Emma." My name in his mouth sounded like a benediction. "You didn't take my advice about finding better work." Every eye in the place was on us. Frank had emerged from the kitchen, his usual bluster nowhere to be seen. He hovered by the counter, watching with naked apprehension. I gripped my rag tighter. "I need the money." Alexander smiled, a real one this time, revealing perfect teeth. It transformed his face from frightening to breathtaking, which was somehow worse. "That's why I'm here." He slid into the booth I'd just cleaned. "Join me." I looked at Frank, who nodded frantically. "Sit," his eyes telegraphed. "For God's sake, sit." I slid into the seat across from Alexander, acutely aware of my stained uniform and greasy hair. He seemed to fill the small booth, his presence extending beyond his physical form. "I understand you finish your shift at 3 today," he said. The fact that he knew my schedule sent ice through my veins. "How?" "I make it my business to know things, Emma." He placed his hands on the table, elegant, manicured, with a heavy gold signet ring on his right hand. No other jewelry. "I have a proposition for you. I'm not interested." His eyebrow arched. "You haven't heard it yet. I don't need to." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Did you kill David?" If the question surprised him, he didn't show it. Would it matter if I did? He was my daughter's father. A father abandons his child? A dangerous edge crept into his voice. A man who leaves a pregnant woman to fend for herself is not a father. He's a coward. I couldn't argue with that, but still. "You had no right." "I had every right." His tone remained conversational, as if discussing the weather. "David Mercer stole from me, Emma. Not money, that I might have forgiven. He stole something far more precious." His gaze grew distant. "But that's not why I'm here. Why are you here?" "To offer you a job." He reached into his jacket and produced an envelope, sliding it across the table. "My sister's children need a tutor. English, primarily, but also general studies. She tells me you have a teaching degree." My blood froze. "How do you know that?" "As I said, I make it my business to know things." He tapped the envelope. "The position pays $5,000 a month. You'll work Monday through Friday, 9 to 2. That leaves your afternoons free for your daughter." $5,000 a month. More than triple what I made between the cafe and the diner. Enough to move to a better apartment. Enough for Lily to have new clothes, better food, maybe even preschool next year. It was too good to be true. Which meant it wasn't true. "What's the catch?" Alexander's lips quirked. "Smart girl." The catch is loyalty, Emma. Once you're in my family's employ, you belong to us. Your problems become our problems. Your daughter becomes our responsibility. Lily is my responsibility, of course, but she could have more. Security. Opportunities. His voice softened. A future beyond this. He gestured at the dingy diner. My throat tightened. Every parent's weakness, the promise of a better life for their child. Why me? You don't even know me. Alexander leaned back, studying me with those unnerving eyes. Let's just say I believe in cosmic balance. You were wronged by someone under my protection. I'm making amends. David worked for you? His expression hardened. David betrayed me, and paid the price. He pushed the envelope closer. Don't make the same mistake. The threat hung in the air between us. I should have been terrified, and I was. But something else stirred beneath the fear. A reckless curiosity, a dangerous pull toward this man who could order a death as easily as ordering coffee. I need to think about it, I said finally. Of course. He stood, the movement fluid and graceful. You have until tomorrow morning. My driver will be outside your apartment at 8. He paused, then added, Bring Lily. My sister is eager to meet her. He left without waiting for my response, his bodyguard falling into step behind him. As the door closed, the diner erupted into whispers. Frank appeared at my side, his face ashen. What the hell was that about? I stared at the envelope, still unopened. I'm not sure. Do you know who that was? His voice cracked. That's Alexander Vega, the Alexander Vega. His family owns half the city, and the other half? I asked, already knowing the answer. They're too scared to admit they don't. I slipped the envelope into my pocket and returned to work, my mind reeling. By the time my shift ended, I'd made my decision. Not because I wanted to, but because I sensed I had no real choice. Alexander Vega had entered my life like a storm, and I was already caught in its vortex. As I walked to Mrs. Patel's to pick up Lily, I noticed how the streets remained unusually quiet. Shopkeepers watched from windows but didn't call out greetings. A police car rolled by slowly, the officer's eyes sliding over me with deliberate indifference. By dawn, the streets were silent with fear, and somehow, I was at the center of it all. I collected Lily from Mrs. Patel's apartment, forcing a smile as my daughter launched herself into my arms. Her small body felt warm against mine, her dark curls tickling my chin as she buried her face in my neck. "Mama missed you so much," I whispered, breathing in her baby shampoo scent. Mrs. Patel hovered nearby, her eyes troubled. "Emma, dear, is everything all right? There's been strange talk in the building today." I shifted Lily to my hip. "What kind of talk?" She lowered her voice, though we were alone in her apartment. "Men asking questions about you and Lily." She wrung her hands. I said nothing, of course, but people are frightened. My stomach clenched. Did these men say who they were? They didn't have to. She glanced nervously at her door. "The Vega name carries weight in this neighborhood. Always has." Her eyes searched mine. "What have you gotten yourself into, child?" "Nothing," I lied. "It's a misunderstanding." She didn't believe me. I could tell by the way her mouth pinched at the corners. But she nodded anyway. "Be careful, Emma. Those people..." She trailed off, shaking her head. "I will." I hitched Lily higher on my hip. "Thank you for watching her." Outside, the autumn afternoon had turned bitter, wind whipping between the buildings. I hurried home, hyper-aware of eyes following our progress from behind curtains and blinds. Lily chatted happily, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air around us. "Park tomorrow, Mama?" she asked, as we climbed the stairs to our apartment. I swallowed hard. "Maybe, baby. We'll see." Inside our apartment, I locked the door and slid the chain into place, though I knew now how meaningless such barriers were against someone like Alexander Vega. If he wanted in, a flimsy chain wouldn't stop him. While Lily played with her few toys on the living room floor, I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a contract, printed on heavy cream paper similar to his business card. The terms were exactly as he'd stated: $5,000 monthly, weekday mornings, tutoring his sister's children in English and general studies. The address listed was in Westview Heights, the wealthiest neighborhood in the city. Below the contract was a check for $10,000. The memo line read, "Advance payment." My hands trembled. $10,000. Enough to clear all my debts, with plenty left over. Enough to move us somewhere better, somewhere safer. But was anywhere truly safe now? I tucked the check and contract back into the envelope and hid it in the kitchen drawer. Later, after Lily was asleep, I'd think this through properly. Weigh my options, if I truly had any. That night, after tucking Lily in with a story about brave princesses who saved themselves, I sat at our small kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold. The envelope lay before me like a ticking bomb. A soft knock at the door nearly stopped my heart. I froze, listening. Not the sharp rap of police or the heavy pounding of someone trying to break in. Just a gentle, almost hesitant tap. "Emma, it's Mrs. Patel." Relief washed over me as I unbolted the door. But the expression on my elderly neighbor's face sent fresh fear coursing through me. "What's wrong?" She glanced nervously down the hallway. "There's a woman here to see you. She's waiting in my apartment. Says she's Alexandra Vega." "Alexandra?" "Alexander's sister. Mrs." Patel twisted her hands in her shawl. "She asked to speak with you privately. I told her you might be asleep, but she insisted it's important." I glanced back at Lily's door. I can't leave Lily alone. She's welcome to join us. A new voice, smooth and cultured, with the barest hint of an accent. Alexandra Vega stood in the hallway, elegant in a charcoal pantsuit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. Unlike her brother, whose presence filled a room with tension, she carried herself with quiet dignity. Her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon, emphasizing high cheekbones and eyes the same stormy gray as Alexander's. "I apologize for the late hour." She extended her hand. "Alexandra Vega, you must be Emma." I shook her hand automatically, noting the coolness of her fingers and the perfect manicure. "How did you find me?" A slight smile. "My brother mentioned he'd offered you a position tutoring my children." No explanation of how she'd gotten my address, which meant Alexander had shared it with her. The thought sent a chill down my spine. Mrs. Patel cleared her throat. "I'll leave you ladies to talk. Emma, you know where to find me if you need anything." The warning in her eyes was clear. After she retreated to her apartment, Alexandra turned to me expectantly. "May I come in?" Every instinct screamed no, but I stepped aside. She entered my apartment, her gaze taking in the second-hand furniture, the water stains on the ceiling, the patched curtains. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "Would you like some tea?" I offered, desperate to break the silence. "No, thank you." She remained standing. "I won't take much of your time. I came to discuss my brother's offer." I crossed my arms. "I haven't decided yet." "Yes, you have." Her statement carried no judgment, just quiet certainty. "You need the money, and my brother rarely takes no for an answer. The question isn't whether you'll accept, but what accepting means for you and your daughter." Something in her tone made me look closer. Beneath her composed exterior, I detected a flicker of... what? Concern. Warning. "Why are you here, Ms. Vega?" "Alexandra, please." She moved to the window, peering through a gap in the curtains at the street below. "My brother has taken a particular interest in you, Emma. That's... unusual." "Because of David?" She turned, her expression carefully neutral. "Is that what Alex told you? That this is about David Mercer?" I nodded slowly. "And you believed him?" It wasn't a question. "Should I not have?" Alexandra sighed, the sound barely audible. "My brother rarely explains his true motivations, even to me. But I know him better than anyone." She stepped closer. "Did he tell you about Sophia?" The name meant nothing to me. "No." "I thought not." She glanced at Lily's bedroom door. "She has dark hair like yours?" A chill ran through me. "Yes." "And brown eyes? About 3 years old? How do you know that?" My voice sharpened with maternal protectiveness. Alexandra's perfect composure slipped just for a moment. "Because you're not the first, Emma. There was another young mother, dark hair, brown eyes, a little girl named Sophia, who would have been 3 this year. Would have been? Pain flickered across her face. There was an accident, a year ago. Sophia and her mother were killed when their car went off a bridge. She held my gaze steadily. It destroyed my brother. Understanding bloomed, cold and terrible. He thinks... What? That Lily and I are some kind of replacement? Alex doesn't think in such simple terms. Alexandra moved to the couch and finally sat, smoothing her pants with an automatic gesture. My brother lost someone he loved deeply. Now he's found someone who reminds him of her. In his mind, it's fate. A second chance. That's insane, I whispered. My brother is many things. Ruthless, brilliant, powerful. Her voice softened. But since losing Sophia, there's been an instability to him, a desperation. And David? Where does he fit into this? Her eyes hardened. David Mercer worked for our family for years. He was there the night of the accident. He was supposed to be driving them home. The pieces clicked together, forming a picture too terrible to contemplate. David was responsible for their deaths? That's what Alex believes. She straightened her already perfect posture. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant now. Because David is dead. The words tasted like ash. Yes. No pretense of innocence or denial. And now, my brother has found you. A single mother abandoned by David Mercer, with a dark-haired daughter the same age Sophia would have been. She leaned forward. Do you understand what I'm telling you, Emma? I did. And the knowledge made me sick with fear. This wasn't about a tutoring job. This wasn't even about revenge against David. This was about obsession, replacement. A man so powerful he could reshape reality to heal his broken heart. What should I do? My voice was barely audible. Alexandra stood. Accept the position. Come to my house tomorrow. Meet my children. She reached into her purse and extracted a business card similar to her brother's, but with a phone number. If you ever feel unsafe, if Alex ever becomes too much, call me, directly, no matter the hour. She moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Emma. My brother can be dangerous, yes, but he can also be kind, generous, fiercely protective of those he considers his. She held my gaze. The question you need to ask yourself is whether you want to become one of those people. After she left, I sank onto the couch, my mind spinning. I hadn't asked the most important question. Was I in any position to refuse? At precisely 8 the next morning, a black car idled outside our apartment building, the same car that had taken Alexander away from the cafe 2 nights ago. The night David died, Lily squirmed in my arms, excited by the prospect of a car ride. I'd dressed her in her best clothes, a blue dress with only one small mend at the hem, white tights still relatively clean, the little boots we'd found at a thrift store last month. I wore my only decent outfit, black pants, a cream blouse that had once belonged to my mother, and a cardigan that had seen better days. My hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and I'd even applied a touch of mascara and lip gloss. Armor, however flimsy. The driver emerged as we approached. One of the bodyguards from the cafe. He nodded respectfully. Ms. Banks. Miss Lily. He opened the rear door. Mr. Vega sends his apologies. He's been delayed at a meeting but will join you at the residence later. Relief washed over me. A small reprieve. The car's interior smelled of leather and the now familiar sandalwood cologne. Lily bounced on the seat, delighted by the luxury surrounding her. Is this a princess car, Mama? She whispered loudly. The driver's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, a flicker of amusement crossing his stoic features. Something like that, baby, I murmured, smoothing her curls. We drove through neighborhoods that grew progressively more affluent until we turned into Westview Heights, a gated community of sprawling estates set back from tree-lined streets. The houses were larger than any I'd ever been inside, with manicured lawns and luxury cars in circular driveways. The Vega residence outshone them all. Set at the end of a private drive, the modern mansion stretched across its lot like a sleeping giant. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the morning light, and immaculate gardens surrounded the property. Security cameras tracked our approach. The gates opened automatically, and we pulled up to the front entrance, where Alexandra waited on the steps. Today, she wore casual elegance, tailored jeans and a silk blouse, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. She smiled as the driver opened our door. "Emma, welcome." Her gaze softened as it landed on Lily. "And you must be Lily. My children are very excited to meet you." Lily, suddenly shy, buried her face in my neck. "They're waiting in the garden." Alexandra led us through a soaring foyer into a house that seemed built of light and air. The furnishings were minimalist but clearly expensive. White sofas, abstract art, touches of chrome and glass. We passed through a gourmet kitchen where a woman in chef's whites nodded respectfully, then out through French doors onto a terrace overlooking gardens that stretched to a distant tree line. 2 children looked up from a table set with breakfast foods. A boy of about 7, dark-haired and serious, and a girl around 5, with Alexandra's gray eyes and delicate features. "Emma, this is Marco and Isabella." Alexandra placed a hand on each child's head in turn. "Children, this is Ms. Banks, who will be your new English tutor, and this is Lily." Marco studied me with grave intensity. "Do you speak Italian too? Our last tutor did." "I'm afraid not. Just English and a little high school Spanish." "That's acceptable," he declared with such adult solemnity that I had to suppress a smile. Isabella, less reserved, bounced from her chair. "Can Lily play with my dollhouse? It has an elevator and everything." Alexandra intervened gently. "Breakfast first, Isabella. Then perhaps Lily would like to see your playroom while Ms. Banks and I discuss the lessons." The children were impeccably behaved, asking politely for more juice, using napkins with practiced ease. Lily watched them with wide eyes, cautiously accepting a croissant when Isabella insisted she try one. "Butter makes it better," the little girl said, carefully spreading a pat on Lily's portion. I felt a pang, watching my daughter experience luxuries I'd never been able to provide. The fresh fruit, the pastries still warm from the oven, the heavy silverware that clinked against bone china plates. After breakfast, Isabella took Lily by the hand. "Come see my dolls." Alexandra nodded permission, and the girls disappeared into the house, followed discreetly by a woman I hadn't noticed before. A nanny or security, I wasn't sure. "Marco, why don't you show Ms. Banks your science project?" Alexandra suggested. "I'll join you in a moment." The boy nodded seriously and led me to a table on the far side of the terrace, where a detailed model of the solar system was under construction. As he explained the relative distances between planets with surprising accuracy, I noticed Alexandra speaking quietly into a phone, her expression tense. She caught my eye and quickly ended the call, joining us at the table. "Marco is quite the astronomer," she said, pride evident in her voice. "I'm impressed." I meant it. "You know more about Jupiter's moons than most adults." The boy's serious expression lightened with the hint of a smile. "Uncle Alex bought me a telescope for my birthday. A real one, not a toy." At the mention of Alexandra's phone buzzed again. She checked it, her posture stiffening slightly. "Marco, would you go check on your sister and Lily? Make sure Isabella isn't overwhelming our guest with too many toys at once." Once he was gone, Alexandra turned to me. "Alex will be here within the hour. Before he arrives, we should discuss the details of your position." She outlined a curriculum focusing on English literature, writing skills, and general science for both children. I would have access to a state-of-the-art classroom on the 2nd floor, complete with computers, books, and teaching materials. The children currently attend Westview Academy, but we've been considering homeschooling, she explained. This would be a trial period to see how they respond to private tutoring. "And Lily?" I asked. "Where would she be during lessons?" "With the children, if she likes. She's younger, of course, but Isabella would welcome the company." Alexandra smiled faintly. "We have a full-time nanny, Mrs. Diaz, who can watch her as well." It all sounded too perfect, too easy. "Alexandra?" I said carefully. "About what you told me last night." She placed her hand over mine, a warning in her eyes. "We'll discuss that another time." I followed her gaze to a security camera mounted discreetly on a nearby tree. Of course. The house was under surveillance. Nothing said here would be truly private. "The contract," I said instead. "I'd like to sign it this morning if that's still acceptable." Relief flickered across her face. Of course. I have the paperwork inside. As we stood, a sound broke the morning calm, the purr of a powerful engine approaching. Alexandra's shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. "Alex is early," she murmured. We watched as the same black car that had brought us pulled up to the house. The driver hurried to open the rear door, and Alexander Vega emerged, today in a charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean frame. He spoke briefly to the driver, then strode toward the terrace with the confident grace of a predator. His eyes found mine immediately, and a smile transformed his severe features. In daylight, with the sun casting a glow on his olive skin, he looked less dangerous, more human, almost handsome, in a sharp, intimidating way. "Emma." He crossed the terrace in long strides, taking my hand before I could step back. His touch was warm, his grip firm but not painful. "I see Alexandra has been taking good care of you. Your home is beautiful," I said, withdrawing my hand as soon as politeness allowed. "Our home," he corrected, "now that you're joining our family." The possessive undercurrent in his voice raised gooseflesh on my arms. "Just as a tutor," I clarified. His smile didn't falter, but something in his eyes hardened. "Of course. For now." Alexandra cleared her throat. "The children are showing Lily the playroom. I was about to review the contract with Emma." Alexander waved a dismissive hand. "Later, I'd like to give Emma a proper tour first." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" It wasn't really a question. Alexandra shot me a look I couldn't quite decipher. Warning or reassurance, I wasn't sure. I placed my hand lightly on Alexander's arm, feeling the expensive fabric of his suit and the hard muscle beneath. He led me back through the French doors into the house, and I felt, with each step, the cage door swinging shut behind me. Alexander guided me through his mansion with the quiet pride of someone showcasing not just property, but legacy. Each room told a story of power accumulated over generations, from the antique Italian furniture to the original artwork by masters whose names I recognized from art history classes in college. "My grandfather built this house in the 1960s, Alexander explained as we entered a study lined with leather-bound books. The room smelled of cedar and old paper. He came to America with nothing but his name and his determination. "And now you own half the city," I said, unable to keep a hint of judgment from my voice. His lips curved in a half-smile. "Is that what people say?" "Among other things." "And what do you believe, Emma?" He stepped closer, his presence enveloping me like a shadow. "Am I the monster the newspapers make me out to be?" I thought of David, found in the river. Of the streets silent with fear after the Vega name was whispered. I think monsters rarely see themselves as such. Instead of anger, my words sparked something like approval in his eyes. "Clever girl." He gestured to the bookshelves. "You'll find the children well prepared for their English lessons. Marco reads at a high school level already, and Isabella has a gift for storytelling." The casual shift in conversation left me disoriented. One moment discussing his family's power, the next, his niece's aptitude for creative writing, as if both subjects carried equal weight. "They seem very bright," I agreed cautiously. "They are." Pride warmed his voice. "They deserve the best education, the best of everything." "Is that why you chose me? Because I'm the best?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my tone. Alexander turned to face me fully, his gray eyes intense. "I chose you because you're exactly what they need. What we all need." The statement hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to face. Before I could respond, he continued the tour, leading me upstairs to a bright, airy room outfitted as a classroom. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, and bookshelves lined one wall. A large table occupied the center, with 4 chairs. 2 child-sized, 2 adult. "Your domain," Alexander announced. "Whatever supplies you need, just ask." The classroom was a teacher's dream, the kind of space I'd imagined during long nights studying for my education degree, before life had taken unexpected turns, before David, before Lily, before my teaching career had ended before it began. "It's perfect," I admitted. "I want you to be comfortable here, Emma." Alexander's voice softened. "I want you to feel at home. This isn't my home." The words slipped out before I could stop them. His expression darkened momentarily, then cleared. Not yet, but it could be. A child's laughter, Lily's laughter, echoed from down the hallway, breaking the tension. Alexander's face transformed at the sound, something raw and vulnerable flashing in his eyes before he masked it. "Shall we see what the children are up to?" he suggested, his tone deliberately light. We found them in a playroom that could have been featured in a luxury magazine. Toys that would have cost me months of salary were arranged on shelves and in bins. A miniature kitchen, a train table, a dollhouse taller than Lily herself. In the center of it all, Isabella and Lily sat cross-legged on a plush carpet, sharing a picture book, while Marco constructed something complex with building blocks nearby. Lily looked up as we entered, her face brightening. "Mama, look at all the toys." My heart contracted painfully. Already she was enchanted by this world so far removed from our cramped apartment, with its second-hand furniture and carefully mended clothes. "I see, baby. Are you having fun with Isabella?" She nodded enthusiastically. "She's teaching me Italian," Isabella beamed. "She's very smart, Ms. Banks. She already knows gatto means cat, and cane means dog." Alexander watched this exchange with an expression I couldn't read. Something between satisfaction and longing. He knelt beside the girls, his imposing presence somehow softening as he reached their level. "Buongiorno, principes," he said gently. Isabella threw her arms around his neck. "Uncle Alex, will you stay for lunch today, please?" "Of course." He ruffled her hair affectionately, then turned to Lily, who regarded him with curious wariness. "And what about you, little one? Would you like me to stay for lunch?" Lily looked to me for guidance. I forced a smile. "Mr. Vega is being very kind to let us visit his beautiful house today." Alexander's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly at my choice of words. "Actually," he said, standing, "I was hoping you and Lily might join us for dinner as well. There's someone I'd like you to meet." Before I could formulate a response, Alexandra appeared in the doorway. "There you are. Emma, if you have a moment, I'd like to finalize the paperwork before lunch." Alexander straightened, smoothing his suit jacket. "Of course. Business first." He smiled down at the children. "I'll see you all at lunch." As he passed me, he leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "The sooner you sign, the sooner we can discuss your new living arrangements." I pulled back, startled. "My what?" But he was already walking away, leaving me to follow Alexandra to a small office adjacent to the playroom. She closed the door behind us, her expression tight. "You need to be careful around my brother, Emma." "So you've said." I sank into a chair across from her desk. What did he mean about living arrangements? Alexandra sighed, taking her own seat. "Alex believes your current apartment is unsuitable. He wants to relocate you and Lily to a property he owns near here." "That wasn't part of our agreement." "I know, and I've told him as much." She slid the contract across the desk. "This agreement is exactly what we discussed. Tutoring position, salary, hours. Nothing about housing or other entanglements." I scanned the document carefully. The terms were straightforward and generous, even more generous than Alexander had initially proposed. $6,000 a month, not $5,000. Health insurance for Lily and me, a transportation allowance, 4 weeks of paid vacation annually. It was more than fair. It was life-changing. And there was no mention of living arrangements or other expectations. "What happens if I refuse to move?" I asked, pen poised over the signature line. Alexandra's gray eyes, so like her brother's, met mine steadily. "I won't lie to you, Emma. My brother is used to getting what he wants. But he also values loyalty and intelligence. If you explain your reasons clearly and respectfully, he may listen. And if he doesn't?" She didn't answer immediately. "Sign the contract. Begin the tutoring. Get to know us, all of us, before you make any decisions about the rest." It seemed like reasonable advice. And practically speaking, I had few options. The check Alexander had given me remained in my kitchen drawer, untouched. But the reality of my financial situation hadn't changed. I needed this job. I signed the contract. Alexandra nodded, looking relieved. "Welcome to the family, Emma." The way she said it, not "welcome to the job" or "welcome to the staff," sent a chill through me. Family, with all its obligations and entanglements. One more thing, she said, lowering her voice although we were alone. The dinner guest tonight, it's our father, Vincenzo. He rarely leaves his estate these days, so his presence is significant. Why does Alexander want me to meet him? Alexandra's expression was carefully neutral. My brother doesn't do anything without purpose, Emma. If he wants father to meet you, it's because he's planning something important. Planning what? She shook her head slightly. I don't know. But whatever it is, be prepared. My father is old-fashioned, traditional. With that cryptic warning, she led me back to the playroom to collect the children for lunch. Lunch was served in a sunlit dining room overlooking the gardens. The children chatted happily, with Lily gradually overcoming her shyness to join the conversation. I watched her transform from my cautious little girl to an animated chatterbox, her eyes bright with excitement as she described her favorite stuffed animal to Isabella. Alexander sat at the head of the table, occasionally interjecting but mostly observing. His gaze lingered on Lily with an intensity that made my maternal instincts flare, yet there was nothing overtly threatening in his manner, just that strange, hungry attention, as if memorizing every detail of her. Emma, he said during a lull in the children's conversation, I've taken the liberty of arranging for your things to be packed and moved this afternoon. I set down my fork, appetite vanishing. Excuse me? Your apartment. He waved a dismissive hand. It's being cleared as we speak. I've acquired a suitable property for you and Lily just 5 minutes from here. 3 bedrooms, a garden for Lily to play in. You'll find it fully furnished. Alexandra shot her brother a warning look. Alex, we discussed this. Emma hasn't agreed to. I've seen where they live, Alexandra. His voice hardened. It's unacceptable. That's not your decision to make, I said, keeping my voice level despite the anger bubbling inside me. Those are our things, our home. A home with faulty wiring, poor security, and neighbors who deal drugs 2 doors down? Alexander's expression was incredulous. No, not anymore. You had no right. I had every right. The quiet authority in his voice silenced the table. Even the children stopped eating, sensing the tension. You signed a contract with my family this morning. Your welfare, and Lily's, is now my concern. The contract was for tutoring, not for you to control my life. His eyes darkened dangerously. Is that what you think I'm doing? Controlling you? Isn't it? For a long moment we stared at each other across the table. I refused to look away, though every instinct screamed at me to back down, to appease the predator watching me with such focused intensity. Finally, unexpectedly, he smiled. You're not afraid of me. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. It's written all over your face. He leaned forward. You're angry? Yes, but not terrified. Do you know how rare that is, Emma? To find someone who sees what I am and still meets my eyes? I glanced at the children, all 3 watching this exchange with varying degrees of confusion and concern. This isn't the time or place for this conversation. Alexander followed my gaze, seeming to remember our audience. He straightened, his expression softening. Of course. Forgive me. He turned to the children with a smile that transformed his face. Who wants gelato for dessert? The sudden shift in his demeanor was jarring, but the children responded with enthusiasm, the tense moment forgotten. As a maid served dishes of Italian ice cream, Alexander caught my eye again. We'll discuss this later, he said quietly. After the children's lessons. It wasn't a request, and I didn't bother pretending I had a choice. I simply nodded and turned my attention to Lily, who was discovering the joy of chocolate gelato for the first time, her eyes wide with delight. The afternoon passed in a blur of lesson planning and getting to know Marco and Isabella. They were bright, engaged students, eager to impress their new tutor. By 3 o'clock, when the formal lesson period ended, I felt a familiar satisfaction. The teacher's joy in connecting with young minds. If only the circumstances had been different. If only their uncle wasn't a man who ordered deaths and rearranged lives on whims. Alexandra collected the children for their piano lessons, leaving me alone in the classroom to organize materials for the next day. I was arranging books on a shelf when I sensed rather than heard someone enter the room. Alexander stood in the doorway, changed from his formal suit into dark slacks and a gray cashmere sweater that matched his eyes. The casual attire somehow made him more approachable, though no less dangerous. "The children like you," he said. "Marco especially. He doesn't warm to people easily. They're wonderful children. I placed the last book on the shelf. You must be proud of them." "I am." He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "Just as I'm sure you're proud of Lily." At the mention of my daughter, I tensed. "Where is she?" "With Mrs. Diaz, helping to bake cookies for tomorrow." He moved closer, his steps deliberate. "She's safe, Emma. She will always be safe with me." "Is that supposed to reassure me? Isn't it reassuring to know your daughter will never want for anything? That she'll have the best education, the best opportunities? That she'll never know the fear of eviction or hunger or danger?" Put that way, it should have been reassuring. Any mother would want those things for her child. But the way he spoke of Lily, with that same possessive undercurrent that colored all his interactions, sent alarms blaring through my mind. "At what cost?" I asked quietly. He stopped a few feet from me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. "That depends on what you think I'm asking for in return." "I don't know what you're asking for. That's the problem." I forced myself to hold his gaze. "Why am I here, Alexander?" "Really?" For a moment he was silent, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Then he said, "Do you believe in fate, Emma?" The question caught me off guard. No. I didn't either. Until a year ago. He turned toward the window, gazing out at the garden where shadows were beginning to lengthen with the afternoon sun. "I lost someone precious to me. Sophia," I said softly. He stiffened, then turned back to me, his expression suddenly guarded. "Alexandra told you. She thought I should know why you were so interested in Lily and me. And what exactly did my sister tell you?" I chose my words carefully, that you cared deeply for a woman and her daughter, that they died in an accident, that David was somehow involved. His jaw tightened at the mention of David. Involved? He was responsible. He was driving that night, drunk, showing off a car that wasn't his. His voice remained controlled, but vibrated with suppressed rage. "He walked away without a scratch while Sophia and her mother drowned. I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Whatever else Alexander Vega might be, his grief was real. "Are you?" He stepped closer. "You loved him once, didn't you? The man who abandoned you when you needed him most." I thought I did. I wrapped my arms around myself. I was young and stupid. And now? Now I know better than to trust easily. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Yet here you are, in my home, accepting my offer. Because I need the money," I said bluntly. "Because I'll do whatever it takes to give Lily a better life. Whatever it takes." He raised an eyebrow. "Careful, Emma. Such declarations are dangerous around men like me." "Why? What exactly do you want from us?" He reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from my face. I forced myself not to flinch, not to show how his touch sent electricity arcing through me. Not entirely unpleasant, which terrified me more than the touch itself. "I want to keep you safe," he said softly. "Both of you." "Why us?" "Because I remind you of her. Because Lily reminds you of Sophia." Something flashed in his eyes. Pain or anger, I couldn't tell. "Is that what Alexandra told you? That you're just a replacement?" "Aren't we?" His hand dropped to his side. "No. You're not a replacement, Emma. You're a second chance." "A second chance at what?" Before he could answer, a knock at the door interrupted us. A man in a dark suit, another bodyguard, entered after Alexander's curt, "Come in." "Sir, Mr. Vega has arrived." Alexander's demeanor shifted instantly, the vulnerability vanishing behind a mask of controlled authority. "Tell him I'll be down shortly." To me, he added, "We need to finish this conversation, but it will have to wait." My father doesn't like to be kept waiting. As we left the classroom, he placed his hand at the small of my back. a proprietary gesture that sent both warning and heat through my body. I stepped slightly away, and he let his hand fall, but the small smile playing at his lips told me he'd noted my reaction. We descended the sweeping staircase to the foyer, where a man in his 70s waited, leaning on an ornate cane. Vincenzo Vega had the weathered dignity of an old lion, silver hair swept back from a face lined with age, but still handsome, with the same sharp features as his son. His suit was impeccably tailored, and a heavy gold ring gleamed on his right hand, a match to Alexander's. Alexandra stood beside him, her posture perfect, but tension visible in the set of her shoulders. The children were nowhere in sight, sent away for this meeting, I realized. And Lily was still with Mrs. Diaz, separated from me as I faced the patriarch of the Vega family. "Father," Alexander greeted him with obvious respect. "May I present Emma Banks, the children's new tutor?" Vincenzo's dark eyes, sharper than his age would suggest, assessed me with calculating precision. "So this is the young woman you've been telling me about." I extended my hand, summoning the poise I'd learned in my teaching program. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Vega." He took my hand in his weathered one, his grip surprisingly strong. "Italian blood?" he asked, still studying my features. "On my grandmother's side," I answered, startled by the question. He nodded, apparently satisfied. "Good stock." "And the child?" A chill ran through me at the clinical way he referred to Lily. "My daughter is 3. Bring her," he commanded, releasing my hand and turning to his son. "I want to see her." Alexander nodded to the bodyguard, who immediately left to fetch Lily. The silent efficiency with which his order was carried out spoke volumes about the power dynamics in this house. "Father, Emma has just signed the tutoring contract this morning," Alexandra interjected smoothly. "Perhaps we should give her time to settle into her role before—" "Basta," Vincenzo cut her off with a sharp gesture. "Your brother has made his intentions clear. I want to see what all the fuss is about." "Intentions?" I glanced at Alexander, who remained impassive, revealing nothing. A moment later, Lily appeared, led by Mrs. Diaz. My daughter's face lit up when she saw me, and she broke free to run to my side. I lifted her into my arms, holding her tight against me. Vincenzo approached us slowly, his cane tapping against the marble floor. He stopped directly in front of us, his gaze now fixed on Lily. "What is your name? Piccola?" he asked, his voice gentler than before. "Lily, never shy for long," answered clearly. "Lily Banks. I'm 3.5. A smile creased the old man's face. 3.5 is a very important age. He reached into his pocket and produced a small gold bracelet. "In my family, we give gifts to important people when we meet them for the first time." I tensed as he held out the bracelet to Lily. "That's very kind, but let her have it, Emma," Alexander said quietly. The command in his tone was unmistakable. Vincenzo fastened the delicate chain around Lily's small wrist. It was beautiful, and undoubtedly worth more than everything I owned combined. "Thank you," Lily said, admiring the way the gold caught the light. Vincenzo nodded, satisfied, then turned to his son. "Your office, Alessandro, now." To me, he added, "You will join us for dinner, Miss Banks? 7 o'clock, formal attire." With that, he turned and walked toward the back of the house, his cane striking a rhythm against the floor. Alexander squeezed my shoulder briefly. "Mrs. Diaz will show you to your room so you can prepare for dinner." "My room?" I thought. "We'll discuss living arrangements later, as promised, but tonight, you and Lily will stay here." His tone brooked no argument. "Alexandra will help you find something suitable to wear." Before I could protest, he followed his father, leaving me standing in the foyer with Lily in my arms, the gold bracelet glinting at her wrist like a shackle. Mrs. Diaz led us upstairs to a guest suite that rivaled any luxury hotel I'd ever seen pictures of. A king-size bed dominated the main room, with French doors opening onto a private balcony. The adjoining bathroom featured a marble shower and a soaking tub large enough to swim in. Connected to the main bedroom was a smaller room with a child's bed, already made up with princess-themed bedding. "They were expecting us to stay," I murmured, taking in the details. Children's books on a shelf, a stuffed bear propped against the pillows, even a small robe hanging in the bathroom emblazoned with a cursive L. Mr. Vega had the room prepared this morning, Mrs. Diaz confirmed, her tone respectful but warm. Is there anything you need, Ms. Banks? I glanced at Lily, who was already exploring the child's room with wide-eyed wonder. I don't even have a toothbrush. All our things are in the closet, Ms. Banks. She opened a door to reveal a walk-in closet filled with clothing. Women's on one side, children's on the other. Mr. Vega took the liberty of having some essentials brought in. I believe you'll find everything you need. I stepped into the closet, stunned. Dresses, blouses, slacks, all in my size, many with designer labels still attached. On Lily's side, an array of children's clothing in her exact size, from play clothes to frilly dresses. This is... I trailed off, unable to find words. Mr. Vega is very thorough, Mrs. Diaz said diplomatically. For tonight's dinner, he suggested the blue dress. She indicated a midnight blue cocktail dress hanging separately. Ms. Alexandra will be up shortly to help with accessories. After she left, I sank onto the edge of the bed, my mind reeling. The speed with which Alexander had insinuated himself into our lives was terrifying. In just 3 days, he'd investigated my background, offered me a job, had my apartment packed up, and installed us in his family home, complete with a wardrobe neither Lily nor I could have afforded in a lifetime. And somewhere in this opulent prison, Alexander and his father were discussing their intentions regarding us. Lily appeared in the doorway of her room, hugging the teddy bear to her chest. Mama, can I keep him? His name is Bruno. I forced a smile. Of course, baby. I patted the bed beside me. Come sit with Mama for a minute. We need to talk. She climbed up, still clutching the bear. I gently took her small hand, examining the gold bracelet that now circled her wrist. It was beautiful craftsmanship. Tiny links of intricate knotwork forming a delicate chain. Lily, what do you think of this place? Of Mr. Vega's house? Her face brightened. It's like a castle. Isabella says we can have a sleepover tonight. Would you like that? To stay here? She nodded enthusiastically. Can we, Mama? Please? I stroked her curls, my heart aching. Already she was enchanted by this world of luxury and privilege, a world that came with invisible strings attached. For tonight, I said carefully. But remember, wherever we go, whatever happens, you and I are a team, right? Right. She grinned, revealing the gap where she'd lost a baby tooth last month. You and me against the bad guys. I pulled her close, breathing in her sweet scent. That's right, baby. Always. A soft knock at the door announced Alexandra's arrival. She entered carrying a velvet jewelry case, her own outfit already changed to an elegant black dress. I thought you might need these, she said, opening the case to reveal a sapphire pendant and matching earrings. They'll complement the blue dress. I can't accept. Yes, you can. She cut me off gently but firmly. Tonight isn't just dinner, Emma. It's an introduction to my father's world. Appearances matter. What exactly am I being introduced as? I asked, keeping my voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. The tutor or something else? Alexandra's expression revealed nothing. That depends partly on you. She sat beside me, speaking softly. My father is traditional, as I said. Family means everything to him. He wants to see our family grow, strengthen. And I fit into this how? She hesitated. Alex hasn't been himself since the accident. He's been lost until he found you. Because I look like her? Because Lily reminds him of Sophia? At first, perhaps. Alexandra's gray eyes, so like her brother's, held mine steadily. But it's more than that now. He sees something in you, Emma, something that's been missing from our family for a long time. What? Courage. She smiled faintly. You stand up to him. Few people do. I thought of our confrontation at lunch, how Alexander had seemed almost pleased by my defiance. That's not courage. It's desperation. Call it what you will. Alexandra stood. Mrs. Diaz will watch Lily while we're at dinner. You should start getting ready. My father dislikes tardiness almost as much as he dislikes disrespect. After she left, I showered in the luxurious bathroom, trying to gather my thoughts under the cascade of hot water. My situation felt increasingly surreal, trapped in a gilded cage by a man whose intentions remained opaque. Was this about replacing his lost love? Creating a ready-made family, or something darker, more possessive? And what would happen if I refused to play along? As I slipped into the blue dress, which fit as if it had been tailored specifically for me, I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror. The woman staring back seemed like a stranger, elegantly dressed, sapphires at her throat and ears, hair arranged in soft waves instead of my usual practical ponytail. I looked like I belonged in this world. The thought terrified me. Mrs. Diaz arrived to stay with Lily, who was already engrossed in a new picture book, and barely noticed my departure. I followed Alexandra down the grand staircase to a formal dining room I hadn't seen before. The space was impressive. A long table that could seat 20. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light over polished wood and fine china. But only 4 places were set. At one end of the table, where Vincenzo and Alexander already waited, both men stood as we entered. Alexander's gaze swept over me, lingering with unmistakable appreciation. He wore a tailored black suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean strength. For a moment, I allowed myself to acknowledge what I'd been denying. He was dangerously attractive, and some treacherous part of me responded to that danger. "You look beautiful," he said quietly, as he held my chair. I didn't respond, but felt heat rise to my cheeks as I took my seat across from Alexandra, with Alexander to my right and Vincenzo at the head of the table. Dinner was served by silent, efficient staff, course after course of Italian cuisine more exquisite than anything I'd ever tasted. Wine flowed freely, though I barely touched mine, wanting to keep my wits sharp. The conversation remained surprisingly normal at first. The children's education, current events, Alexandra's charity work. Vincenzo asked pointed questions about my background, my education, my family. I answered honestly, but carefully, acutely aware of the undercurrents flowing beneath this seemingly civilized dinner. It wasn't until dessert was served, a delicate tiramisu, that Vincenzo finally addressed the elephant in the room. "So, Ms. Banks," he said, his accent more pronounced after several glasses of wine, "my son tells me you've accepted the position of tutor to Alexandra's children." "Yes, sir." "And you understand what that means? To be employed by our family?" I set down my fork. "I understand that it's a teaching position with generous compensation." Vincenzo's lips twitched, almost amused. "Is that all you think it is?" I glanced at Alexander, whose expression remained carefully neutral. "What else should it be?" The old man leaned forward, his dark eyes sharp. "Our family does not hire employees, Ms. Banks. We adopt them. When you work for the Vegas, you become one of us, protected, valued." His gaze hardened. "And bound by certain obligations." "What kind of obligations?" "Loyalty," Alexander interjected smoothly. "Discretion. And obedience," Vincenzo added, with a pointed look at his son. Something Alessandro would do well to remember. Tension crackled between father and son, some unspoken disagreement hovering just below the surface. "I agreed to teach the children," I said carefully. "I didn't agree to anything else." Vincenzo's weathered hand closed around his wineglass. "Yet here you sit, wearing jewelry worth more than you'd earn in a year. Your daughter upstairs wearing a gold bracelet that has been in our family for generations." His tone remained pleasant, but steel underlay the words. "Actions speak louder than contracts, Ms. Banks." My throat tightened. The bracelet was a gift. I didn't realize. "In our tradition," Vincenzo continued as if I hadn't spoken, "such gifts are not given lightly. They signify intention, commitment." "Father," Alexander's voice carried a warning, "we agreed to take this slowly. At my age, slowly is a luxury I cannot afford." Vincenzo turned his penetrating gaze back to me. "My son has chosen you, Ms. Banks. He believes you and your daughter can heal the wound left by tragedy. I am inclined to support his choice, provided you understand what joining our family truly means." The implication struck me like a physical blow. "Joining your family? I thought we were discussing a tutoring position." That was just the beginning. Alexander's voice was soft, but his eyes burned with intensity. You know that, Emma. You've known since the moment we met. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I need some air. Without waiting for permission, I walked out of the dining room and through the French doors that led to the terrace. The night air was cool against my flushed skin, the gardens below shrouded in darkness, save for strategic landscape lighting that illuminated pathways and architectural features. I gripped the stone balustrade, trying to calm my racing heart. The situation was spiraling beyond my control. Had been from the moment Alexander walked into that coffee shop. Footsteps sounded behind me. I didn't turn, knowing who it would be. You frightened her. Alexandra's voice was accusatory. Both of you. She needs to understand what's at stake. Alexander came to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth but not touching. What is at stake, exactly? I asked, still staring out at the darkened gardens. Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you're offering me a choice between a gilded cage and... I trailed off, the unspoken alternative hanging in the air between us. Is that what you think? Something like genuine hurt colored his tone. That I'm threatening you, aren't you? He sighed, running a hand through his immaculate hair, the first sign of dishevelment I'd seen from him. I want to protect you, Emma. You and Lily both. From what? From the life you were living. From struggle and want and fear. He turned to face me, his expression earnest in a way I hadn't seen before. I can give you everything you've ever wanted for yourself, for your daughter. At what price? His gaze was steady. Be mine. The simple declaration hung between us, loaded with implications. Your what? Employee? Possession? My partner. He hesitated, then finished softly. My wife. I stared at him, speechless. We'd known each other for 3 days. 3 days of manipulation, coercion, and thinly veiled threats. This is insane, I whispered. You don't even know me. I know enough. He stepped closer, and this time I had nowhere to retreat. I know you're brave and intelligent. I know you'd do anything for your daughter. I know you've been hurt, betrayed, but you haven't let it break you. His hand rose to cup my cheek, his touch unexpectedly gentle. And I know that when I look at you, I see a future I thought was lost to me forever. Some treacherous part of me responded to the raw emotion in his voice, to the unmistakable sincerity in his eyes. But the rational part remembered David in the river, streets silent with fear, the calculated way he'd manipulated my life in just 3 short days. I stepped back, breaking contact. I can't be what you want me to be. You already are. He lowered his hand. You just don't know it yet. Alexander. 3 months, he interrupted. Give me 3 months. Stay here, teach the children. Let me show you what life with me could be. His expression grew intent. If, after 3 months, you still want to leave, I'll let you go. With enough money to start fresh anywhere you choose. It was a tempting offer, too tempting. And therein lay the danger. And Lily? Something flashed in his eyes, a possessiveness that sent a chill through me. Lily stays with us. Absolutely not. She belongs here, Emma, with a family that can give her everything. With children her age, the finest education, opportunities you couldn't imagine. She belongs with her mother. We stared at each other, at an impasse. Behind us, Alexandra cleared her throat. Perhaps we should continue this discussion tomorrow, she suggested diplomatically. It's been a long day for everyone. Alexander's jaw clenched, but he nodded curtly. Tomorrow, then. To me, he added in a lower voice. Think about my offer, Emma. 3 months. That's all I'm asking. He turned and walked back inside, leaving me alone with Alexandra on the terrace. He's never asked anyone to marry him before, she said after a moment of silence. Not even Sophia's mother. I glanced at her sharply. What? They were lovers, yes, but he never proposed. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Don't underestimate what that means, Emma. In our world, marriage isn't just about emotion. It's about legacy. Power. I don't want power. I just want my daughter to be safe and happy. And she can be. Here. With us. Alexandra touched my arm gently. My brother can be ruthless. Yes. Even cruel when necessary. But he protects what's his with everything he has. No one would ever dare harm you or Lily if you were his wife. And if I refuse, Her expression grew troubled. I don't know. He's changed since the accident. There's a desperation to him now. Desperation can make people dangerous. Yes, she agreed softly. It can. We stood in silence for a moment, the night air growing cooler. I should check on Lily, I said finally. Alexandra nodded. Of course. Just think about what he's offering, Emma. Not many people get second chances in this life. As I climbed the stairs to our suite, my mind whirled with conflicting emotions. Part of me recognized the insanity of Alexander's proposal. We barely knew each other, and what I did know should have sent me running. Yet another part, a part I was ashamed to acknowledge, was tempted. Not just by the luxury and security, but by Alexander himself, his intensity, his focus, the way he looked at me as if I were the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. When I opened the door to our suite, Mrs. Diaz rose from where she'd been reading in an armchair. She's been asleep for about an hour, she reported quietly, a perfect angel. I thanked her and went to check on Lily. My daughter slept peacefully. Bruno the bear clutched to her chest, the gold bracelet still gleaming on her small wrist. In sleep, her resemblance to me was striking, the same dark curls, the same stubborn chin. I wondered if that resemblance had been what first caught Alexander's eye, if he'd seen in us echoes of what he'd lost. The thought should have repulsed me. Instead, it filled me with a complicated sadness. For Alexander, for the woman and child he'd lost, for the desperate measures grief had driven him to. But pity wouldn't protect Lily, and whatever Alexander's motives, his methods were those of a man accustomed to taking what he wanted, regardless of consent. I slipped the bracelet carefully from Lily's wrist, noting the small engraving on the clasp, the Vega family crest, I presumed, a symbol of ownership as much as affection. A noise from the main bedroom caught my attention. I froze, then carefully tucked the bracelet into my pocket, and moved quietly to the doorway. Alexander stood by the French doors, silhouetted against the night sky. He turned as I entered, his expression unreadable in the dim light. I didn't mean to startle you, he said. What are you doing in my room? I wanted to apologize. He stepped closer, into the pool of light cast by a bedside lamp. Dinner didn't go as planned. My father can be overwhelming. That's one word for it. I remained by Lily's door, ready to retreat if necessary. Your entire family seems to excel at overwhelming. A hint of a smile curved his lips. A family trait, I'm afraid. Is that what tonight was about? Making me part of your family whether I want it or not? His smile faded. I didn't handle it well. I know that. He ran a hand through his hair again, the gesture surprisingly vulnerable. When it comes to you, I seem to lose my usual finesse. Is that what you call it? Finesse? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. You've manipulated my life from the moment we met, threatened the father of my child, packed up my apartment without permission, dressed my daughter in clothes I could never afford. And now you're proposing marriage as if it's a business transaction. And yet you're still here. His gaze was penetrating. You could have left at any point today, Emma. Called a taxi, gone to a hotel, disappeared. But you didn't. He was right, and we both knew it. I could have left, should have left, but something had kept me here. Curiosity, fear, or something more unsettling, an attraction to this dangerous man who saw in me something worth pursuing at any cost. I stayed for Lily, I said, the half-truth bitter on my tongue. She was happy today, happier than I've seen her in months. Alexander moved closer, stopping a few feet away. And what about you, Emma? What would make you happy? Not being coerced. Then let me court you properly. The formal phrase sounded strange yet fitting coming from him. 3 months as I proposed. No pressure. No demands beyond your tutoring duties. Let me show you who I really am. I know who you are. I met his gaze steadily. You're the man who had David killed. He didn't deny it. David Mercer stole something precious from me. He paid the price for his betrayal. And now you think you can replace what you lost with Lily and me? Pain flashed across his features. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me. I moved away from Lily's door, toward the center of the room where we could speak without risk of waking her. Make me understand why, out of all the women in this city, you chose a struggling single mother working in a coffee shop. He was silent for a moment, gathering his thoughts. When he spoke, his voice was low, controlled, but with an undercurrent of emotion I hadn't heard before. The night I lost Sophia and her mother, I lost my faith in everything, in justice, in meaning, in the future. His gaze was distant, seeing ghosts. I functioned. I ran the family business. I played my role. But inside, there was nothing but rage and emptiness. He paced to the window and back, energy radiating from him like heat. When I walked into that cafe 3 nights ago, I wasn't looking for you. I was meeting someone about a business matter. But then I saw you, exhausted, defiant, beautiful, despite everything life had thrown at you. His eyes locked with mine, and for the first time in a year, I felt something break through the numbness. Attraction? I suggested skeptically. Recognition. He stepped closer. I recognized something in you, Emma. A strength that matched my own, a determination to protect what's yours, no matter the cost. Another step, bringing him within arm's reach. When I learned who you were, that David had abandoned you pregnant and alone, it felt like the universe was offering a chance to balance the scales, to right a wrong. By what? Taking us as compensation? By protecting you the way I failed to protect them. Intensity blazed in his gray eyes. By giving your daughter the future that was stolen from Sophia. By making something good come from tragedy. The raw honesty in his voice was more persuasive than any smooth seduction could have been. It painted a picture of a man driven not just by grief, but by a desperate need for redemption. And if I say no? I asked softly. If I take Lily and walk away? His expression darkened. Don't. Just that. One word, laden with equal parts threat and plea. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the gold bracelet. You can't buy us, Alexander. Not with jewelry, not with clothes, not with promises of security. He looked at the bracelet in my palm, then back at my face. That belonged to my grandmother. It's been passed down through generations of Vegas women. His voice was carefully controlled. It wasn't meant as a bribe. What was it meant as? A welcome, an initiation. He hesitated, then added softly, a beginning. I closed my fingers around the bracelet. I can't accept it. Not now. Not until I know. Know what? If I can trust you. The admission cost me, but it was true. If whatever this is between us is real, or just your grief looking for an outlet. For a long moment he was silent, studying me with those intense gray eyes. Then to my surprise he nodded, fair enough. He took a step back, creating space between us. 3 months, Emma. No pressure, no demands beyond your teaching duties. Get to know me. The real me. Not just what you've heard or assumed. His lips curved in a slight smile. If after that you still want to leave, I'll let you go. Both of us, I clarified. Me and Lily. Pain flashed across his features, but he nodded again. Both of you. He moved toward the door, then paused. But I think you'll stay. Why? His smile was confident, bordering on arrogant. Because underneath all that caution and fear, you feel it too. This connection between us. He opened the door. Good night, Emma. After he left, I sank onto the edge of the bed, the gold bracelet heavy in my palm. He was right about one thing. There was a connection between us, something electric and dangerous and completely unexpected. The question was whether I dared explore it, knowing what he was capable of, knowing that the path he offered, however tempting, might well be a gilded cage from which there would be no escape. I placed the bracelet on the nightstand and went to check on Lily one more time. In sleep, she looked so innocent, so vulnerable. I'd do anything to protect her, even if that meant protecting her from the very man who offered us safety. 3 months, he'd said. 3 months to decide our future. As I prepared for bed, I wondered if I'd already made my choice the moment I'd agreed to come to this house. If the trap had already sprung closed around us, gold-plated and velvet-lined though it might be. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close. For a moment, disoriented by the unfamiliar luxury surrounding me, I didn't remember where I was. Then reality crashed back. The Vegas, Alexander's proposal, the bargain I'd struck. 3 months. I slipped from bed and checked on Lily, who still slept peacefully. Bruno clutched to her chest. The gold bracelet remained where I'd left it on the nightstand, catching the morning light. After showering in the palatial bathroom, I examined the closet filled with clothes in my size. Choosing the most modest option, dark slacks and a simple blouse, I dressed quickly, feeling like an imposter in someone else's life. A soft knock at the door announced Mrs. Diaz, bearing a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Ms. Banks." Her smile was warm, genuine. "Mr. Vega thought you might prefer breakfast in your room this morning." The tray held croissants, fresh fruit, yogurt, and coffee that smelled heavenly. "Thank you." Is Mr. Vega downstairs?" "He left early for a business meeting in the city. Ms. Alexandra is with the children in the breakfast room if you'd like to join them once Miss Lily is awake." After she left, I sipped the coffee, perfectly prepared with just the right amount of cream, and contemplated my situation in the clear light of day. I was in the home of a man who had, by his own admission, ordered the death of my daughter's father, a man who had manipulated me, threatened me, and then proposed marriage in the span of 3 days, a man whose family operated outside the law, wielding power through fear and violence. And yet, there was more to Alexander Vega than the cold-blooded Mafia boss. I'd seen glimpses of vulnerability, of genuine pain. His grief for Sophia and her mother was real. His affection for his niece and nephew seemed sincere, and when he looked at me, there was something beyond desire in his eyes. A hunger for connection, for redemption, that matched an emptiness in my own soul I'd tried to ignore. Lily stirred, her small voice calling, "Mama." I moved to her room, smiling as she rubbed sleep from her eyes. "Good morning, baby. Where's Bruno?" She looked around frantically until she located the teddy bear that had fallen to the floor. "Right here." I handed him to her. "Are you hungry?" Mrs. Diaz brought breakfast. As she ate, chattering about the games she wanted to play with Isabella today, I made a decision. I would stay. For now. Not just for the financial security, but to understand what Alexander Vega truly wanted from us, whether redemption was possible for a man like him, whether the connection between us was real or merely a product of grief and desperation on both sides. And if, at the end of 3 months, I still felt unsafe, if Alexander proved to be the monster his reputation suggested, I would take Lily and disappear. The money he'd already given me would be enough to start over somewhere far away. The days settled into a routine of surprising normalcy. Each morning, I taught Marco and Isabella in the bright classroom, with Lily often joining us, absorbing whatever lessons were age-appropriate for her. The children were eager students, and I found myself enjoying the teaching that had once been my dream. Afternoons were spent with Lily, exploring the expansive gardens or helping her bond with Isabella, who had taken to my daughter like a big sister. Alexandra often joined us, her initial reserve gradually warming into something like friendship. Alexander was frequently absent, his business taking him into the city or sometimes abroad for days at a time. When he was present, he kept his distance as promised, polite, attentive, but never pushing for more than I was willing to give. Our interactions were limited to family dinners or brief conversations about the children's progress. Yet, I felt his eyes on me constantly, tracking my movements, gauging my reactions, and despite my best intentions, I found myself looking for him too, noting when he entered a room, cataloging the rare smiles that transformed his severe features, observing the gentle way he listened to the children's stories. "He's different with you here," Alexandra remarked one afternoon as we watched the children play in the garden. "Calmer. More like his old self." I glanced at her. What was he like, before the accident? She considered the question, controlled, disciplined. But there was a lightness to him too, a capacity for joy that disappeared after we lost Sophia. Her gray eyes, so like her brother's, met mine until you came. "I'm not her," I said quietly. "I can't replace what he lost. No one's asking you to." She touched my arm gently, "But perhaps you can help him find something new." Weeks passed in this strange limbo. I remained in the guest suite with Lily, though Alexander had offered us a separate apartment on the grounds. I kept the gold bracelet in my nightstand drawer, unable to either accept or return it. And I waited for the mask to slip. for Alexander to reveal the ruthless Mafia boss beneath the courteous exterior. Instead, I glimpsed more of the man beneath both masks. The brother who teased Alexandra mercilessly about her workaholic tendencies. The uncle who spent hours helping Marco build increasingly complex model rockets. The son who visited his aging father daily, despite their frequent disagreements. And occasionally, when he thought no one was watching, I caught sight of the wounded man still grieving for a child who would never grow up. 1 month into our arrangement, I was reading in the library late one night after putting Lily to bed when Alexander found me. "May I join you?" he asked from the doorway. I nodded, marking my place in the book, a first edition of Jane Eyre I'd discovered among the library's treasures. He poured 2 glasses of brandy from a crystal decanter, offering one to me before settling into the leather chair opposite mine. His suit jacket was discarded, tie loosened. The sleeves of his white shirt rolled to reveal strong forearms. He looked more approachable this way, less the untouchable crime boss, and more a man unwinding after a long day. "The children are thriving with you," he said after a comfortable silence. Marco actually asked about poetry today, voluntarily. I smiled despite myself. He has a good ear for rhythm. I think he'd enjoy writing his own verses if he could get past the idea that it's not scientific enough. Alexander's lips curved, always so serious, that one, like his father was. The casual reference to Alexandra's late husband surprised me. The Vegas rarely spoke of their dead. "What happened to him?" I asked cautiously. Alexander swirled his brandy, watching the amber liquid catch the light. "Car bombing. 10 years ago. A rival family's work." His eyes met mine, gauging my reaction. "This is the world we live in, Emma. I've never pretended otherwise. Is that why you keep such tight control? Such extensive security?" He nodded. "I won't lose anyone else to violence, not if I can prevent it." "By employing violence yourself." It wasn't a question. "When necessary." He didn't apologize or justify it. "I protect what's mine." "Like David?" The name slipped out before I could stop it. Alexander's expression darkened. "David betrayed trust. He was responsible for the deaths of 2 innocent people, a woman I loved and a child I considered my own." His voice remained calm, but I could hear the controlled fury beneath it. "Yes, I ordered his death. And I'd do it again." "Does it ever haunt you, the people you've killed?" He considered the question seriously. "The deserving ones? No. The innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire? Yes." He set down his glass. "I'm not a monster, Emma, whatever you may think. I have lines I won't cross. Rules I follow. A code of honor among thieves? Something like that." His lips quirked in a half-smile. "Though I prefer to think of myself as a businessman with unconventional methods." I laughed despite myself. "Is that what we're calling it now?" His smile widened, genuine amusement lighting his features. "Would you prefer crime lord, mafia boss, godfather?" "I prefer the truth." The smile faded, replaced by something more intense. "The truth is, I'm a man who spent his life building and protecting an empire that means nothing if there's no one to share it with." He leaned forward. "The truth is, I never expected to find someone like you, Emma. Someone who sees me, truly sees me, and doesn't look away." Heat crept up my neck. "I see a complicated man with blood on his hands." "Yes," he agreed softly. "And yet you're still here." The observation hung between us, challenging me to examine my own motivations. Why was I still here? The money? Yes, the security for Lily. But there was more. A fascination with this man that had deepened over the weeks into something dangerously close to attraction. I stood abruptly. "I should check on Lily." Alexander rose as well, his height and presence filling the space between us. "Of course." He took my hand before I could retreat, raising it to his lips in a gesture both old-fashioned and intimate. "Good night, Emma." His lips brushed my knuckles, sending electricity arcing up my arm. Our eyes met over our joined hands, and for a moment, the air between us seemed charged with unspoken possibilities. Then I pulled away. "Good night, Alexander." As I hurried back to our suite, I could still feel the warmth of his mouth against my skin. The following weekend, Alexander announced a family outing, a picnic at a private lake owned by the Vegas, a short drive from the main house. The children were ecstatic, and even Alexandra seemed pleased by the prospect of a day away from work. The day dawned clear and warm for early autumn. We drove in 2 cars, Alexandra with the children in one, Alexander and I in another. It was the first time we'd been truly alone together since that night in the library. He drove himself, dismissing the usual bodyguards except for 2 who followed discreetly in a separate vehicle. Behind the wheel of the sleek sports car, he looked relaxed, one hand guiding the steering wheel with casual confidence, the other resting on the console between us. "I thought this might be good for Lily," he said as we wound through the countryside, "to see more of the world beyond the estate." I glanced at him, surprised by his consideration. "Thank you." "She's been asking about the playground at her old preschool. We could enroll her at Westview Academy with Marco and Isabella," he suggested. "They have an excellent program for her age group." The casual way he included Lily in future plans both warmed and alarmed me. "Let's see how these 3 months go first." He nodded, accepting the boundary. "Fair enough." The lake was stunning, crystal clear water surrounded by trees beginning to turn gold and crimson. A wooden dock extended into the water, and a boathouse stood nearby. A short distance from the shore, a pavilion had been set up with tables, comfortable seating, and what appeared to be a complete outdoor kitchen. "This is beautiful," I admitted as we parked beside Alexandra's car. Alexander's expression softened as he watched the children race toward the water's edge. "I spent my summers here as a boy, learning to swim, to fish, to sail." His eyes took on a faraway look. "I wanted to bring Sophia here. She never got the chance." I touched his arm gently. "I'm sorry." He covered my hand with his own, the gesture brief but significant. "Thank you." The day unfolded with surprising ease. The children played at the water's edge under Alexandra's watchful eye, while Alexander grilled steaks on an outdoor fire. I helped prepare a salad, feeling almost normal in this domestic scene, as if we were just a regular family enjoying a weekend outing. After lunch, Alexander taught Lily to skip stones across the water's surface, his large hands guiding her small ones with gentle patience. Watching them together, her dark curls contrasting with his taller frame as he knelt beside her, sent a confusing mixture of warmth and wariness through me. "He's good with her," Alexandra observed, joining me on the pavilion's edge. "Yes," I couldn't deny it. "She's starting to adore him. And you?" Her perceptive gaze studied my face. "How do you feel about my brother after these weeks together?" I hesitated, uncertain how to articulate the complex emotions Alexander evoked in me. "I'm less afraid of him. That's a start." She smiled faintly. "He's less afraid too, you know." "Alexander? Afraid?" The concept seemed absurd for a man who radiated such confidence and power. "Of loving again." She watched her brother laugh at something Lily said, his usually guarded expression open and warm. "Of losing again." Before I could respond, Marco called Alexandra to see a fish he'd caught and released. I remained alone, contemplating her words as I watched Alexander with my daughter. Could I love a man like him, with his violent past, his dangerous present, his possessive nature? More importantly, should I? What would it mean for Lily to grow up in his world, with its undercurrents of threat and power? Yet there was goodness in him too. A capacity for tenderness I'd witnessed not just with Lily, but with all the children, with his sister, even with the staff who served his family. A code that, while outside the law, still governed his actions with a certain twisted integrity. Late in the afternoon, as shadows lengthened across the lake, Alexander suggested we take the small sailboat out. Marco and Isabella were busy building an elaborate sandcastle with Alexandra, and Lily had fallen asleep on a lounge chair after her exciting day. "Just for a short sail," he promised. "We'll stay within sight of shore." I hesitated, then nodded. "All right." Alexandra gave me a meaningful look as Alexander helped me into the boat, but said nothing. Out on the water, with Alexander handling the sail with practiced ease, a peaceful silence descended between us. The gentle rocking of the boat, the whisper of wind, the late afternoon sun casting everything in golden light. It was like being transported to another world, far from the complications of reality. I learned to sail when I was Marco's age, Alexander said, adjusting the rigging. My father believed it built character. Did it? He smiled. It taught me patience, at least, and respect for forces beyond my control. Not something you encounter often in your line of work. More often than you might think. He guided the boat into a gentle turn. In business, any business, you have to recognize which elements you can control and which you can't. And when you can't control something, his eyes met mine. You adapt. You find another way to get what you want. The intensity of his gaze sent heat spreading through me. I looked away, focusing on the shoreline where Alexandra now sat with all 3 children around her, apparently telling them a story. They look happy, I observed. They are. Alexander followed my gaze. We could be too, Emma. The simple declaration hung between us. Not a demand or manipulation this time, but an offering. A possibility. Alexander, I began, unsure what to say. You don't have to answer now. He guided the boat back toward the dock with smooth efficiency. We still have 2 months of our agreement left. But as he helped me from the boat, his hand warm and strong around mine, I wondered if I would need that long to decide. Something had shifted between us during these weeks together, a tentative trust building despite my reservations, a connection deepening despite my caution. That night, after we returned to the mansion and I tucked an exhausted Lily into bed, I found the gold bracelet in my nightstand drawer. I held it in my palm, feeling its weight, the weight of history, of family, of belonging. On impulse, I slipped it onto my wrist. It fit perfectly, as if made for me. I stared at it in the moonlight streaming through my window, knowing what accepting it would mean. A soft knock at my door startled me. I opened it to find Alexander, still dressed but with his tie removed, his collar unbuttoned. I wanted to thank you, he said, his voice low to avoid waking Lily, for today. For giving this, us, a chance. Then his gaze dropped to my wrist, where the gold bracelet gleamed. Something flared in his eyes, hope, triumph, desire. Emma. Just my name, but filled with meaning. I should have removed the bracelet, explained that I was just trying it on, that I hadn't made any decisions yet. Instead, I stepped back from the doorway. An invitation. Alexander entered slowly, closing the door behind him with a soft click. For a moment, we stood facing each other in the dimly lit room, the air between us charged with anticipation and uncertainty. I haven't decided yet, I said softly. About staying. About us. I know. He reached out, his fingers tracing the bracelet on my wrist, then continuing up my arm in a touch so light it made me shiver. But you're considering it. Yes, I admitted. His hand moved to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone in a gentle caress. May I kiss you, Emma? The question, so formal, so respectful, undid me. In this moment, he wasn't the Mafia boss who had threatened and manipulated me. He was just a man, asking permission, giving me choice. I nodded, unable to form words past the tightness in my throat. He leaned down slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. His lips met mine with unexpected gentleness, a question, not a demand. I responded hesitantly at first, then with growing certainty, my hands rising to rest on his chest, feeling his heart race beneath my palms. The kiss deepened, Alexander's control slipping as I pressed closer. His arms encircled me, one hand tangling in my hair, the other at the small of my back. Heat bloomed between us, months of tension and attraction crystallizing into this moment of connection. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, I saw raw vulnerability in his eyes. Something I'd never expected from this powerful, controlled man. Stay, he whispered against my lips. Not just for the 3 months. Stay with me, Emma. Be mine. Reality crashed back, cooling the heat of the moment. It's not that simple. It can be. His forehead rested against mine. Let me protect you. Let me love you. I don't know if I can love what you are, I admitted, the painful truth forcing its way out. What you do. Pain flickered across his features, but he didn't pull away. then love who I am with you, with Lily, with the children. And if those are just two sides of the same man, then love me despite my flaws. His voice roughened with emotion. God knows I'm learning to accept yours. I drew back, surprised. My flaws? A hint of a smile touched his lips. Your stubbornness, your suspicion, your infuriating ability to see through me when I least want to be seen. Despite everything, I found myself smiling back. Those sound like complaints, not acceptance. I never said loving you would be easy. His hand cupped my cheek again. Just worth it. The sincerity in his voice, in his eyes, broke through the last of my defenses. This dangerous, complicated man had somehow found his way past my carefully constructed walls, and God help me, I wanted to let him stay there. I need time, I whispered. You have it. He kissed me again, briefly, but with intensity, however long it takes. As he turned to leave, I caught his hand. Stay. The word was out before I could reconsider. Just to sleep. Lily is here, and I'm not ready for... I know. He interlaced our fingers. Just sleep. That night, lying in Alexander's arms, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath my cheek, I allowed myself to imagine a future with this man. A future where his protection extended to us, rather than imprisoned us. Where Lily grew up surrounded by family, by love, by security I could never provide alone. A future where I accepted both sides of Alexander Vega, the ruthless protector and the tender lover, and found a way to reconcile them in my heart. The remaining weeks of our 3-month agreement passed in a new state of cautious courtship. Alexander was patient, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. Our evenings often ended with him in my bed, holding me through the night, our physical relationship progressing gradually as trust built between us. Lily bloomed under the attention of the entire Vega family. She and Isabella became inseparable, and even Sirius Marco appointed himself her protector and teacher. Alexandra taught her Italian lullabies, and Vincenzo, once he realized I was genuinely considering becoming part of the family, shared stories of the old country, of family traditions that stretched back generations. 2 weeks before our agreed deadline, Alexander took me into the city for dinner, our first real date outside the mansion grounds. We dined in a private room at an exclusive restaurant, where the staff treated him with a mixture of respect and fear that reminded me sharply of who he was beyond the walls of our developing relationship. "Does it bother you?" he asked, noting my observation of the maitre d's deference. "How people respond to me. It reminds me of the reality of your world," I answered honestly. He nodded, accepting this. "A world I want to share with you, not the darkness, but the protection it provides, the opportunities it creates. For Lily? For both of you." He reached across the table, taking my hand. The gold bracelet gleamed on my wrist, now a permanent fixture. "I want to build something lasting, Emma. A legacy beyond power and fear. With me. Only with you." His gray eyes held mine with an intensity that still made my breath catch. "I've lived in shadows all my life. You bring light." After dinner, instead of returning directly to the mansion, Alexander directed his driver to a different part of the city, an upscale residential neighborhood of brownstones and tree-lined streets. "Where are we going?" I asked, as the car pulled up before an elegant townhouse. "I want to show you something." The townhouse was magnificent, 4 stories of classic architecture updated with modern amenities. Alexander guided me through rooms filled with tasteful furnishings, state-of-the-art technology discreetly integrated into historical charm. On the 3rd floor, he opened a door to reveal a bedroom decorated in soft pinks and purples, with a canopy bed sized for a small child, and bookshelves filled with children's titles. "For Lily," he explained, watching my face. Adjacent to it was a larger bedroom done in serene blues and creams, with a king-sized bed and windows overlooking a private garden. "And for us," he added softly, "if you choose to stay." I turned to him, understanding dawning. "This is what you meant by living arrangements. Not the mansion, but this?" He nodded. "A home of our own, close enough to the estate for security, for the children to play together, but separate, private. Our own life," I murmured, running my hand along the bedroom's doorframe. "Yes." He stepped closer, his expression earnest. I know my world frightens you, Emma. I know you worry about what it would mean for Lily to grow up in it. This would be our sanctuary, a place where we can just be a family, away from the business. Can those worlds truly be separated? Not entirely, he admitted. But I can keep the darkness away from our home, from our children. The casual inclusion of future children, our children, sent a flutter through me. I'd never considered having more children after Lily, had thought that dream died when David abandoned us. But with Alexander, the possibility suddenly seemed real, desirable even. It's beautiful, I said, turning to face him fully. All of it, but you're still unsure. He cupped my face in his hands. I understand. You have 1 more week to decide, as we agreed. But standing in that beautiful townhouse, imagining the life we could build there, I realized I'd already made my choice. Had been making it gradually over these months together. I don't need another week, I said softly. Alexander went very still, his eyes searching mine. Emma? I'll stay. The words felt right as I spoke them. Lily and I will stay with you. Joy transformed his face, making him look younger, lighter. You're certain? As certain as I can be. I placed my hands over his where they still cradled my face. I can't promise to love everything about your world, Alexander, but I do love who you are with me. With Lily, the man who teaches her to skip stones and reads her bedtime stories and looks at me like I'm the answer to a question you've been asking your whole life. You are, he whispered, drawing me closer. You've brought me back to life, Emma. You and Lily both. Promise me something, I said, holding his gaze. Promise me you'll always keep the darkness away from her, that she'll never have to see that side of you. I swear it. His voice was solemn, a vow more binding than any contract. On everything I hold sacred, I will protect her from that world. And us? This connection between us? Is it real, Alexander? Or is it still about replacing what you lost? Pain flickered in his eyes, but he answered truthfully. It began that way. I won't lie to you. But now? He shook his head. No, what I feel for you has nothing to do with the past. You're not a replacement, Emma. You're a revelation. He kissed me then, pouring all his passion and promise into the connection between us. I responded with equal fervor, finally allowing myself to embrace the future he offered. Complicated, dangerous, but filled with a love so fierce it could either destroy or redeem us both. 6 months later, I stood in the garden of the Vega estate, watching as Lily chased butterflies with Isabella. Marco sat nearby, reading a book, but glancing up occasionally to ensure the younger children didn't wander too far. We'd moved into the townhouse a month after my decision to stay, creating a home that balanced the luxury Alexander insisted upon with the warmth and simplicity I valued. I continued tutoring the children, finding fulfillment in the career I'd once abandoned. Alexander had kept his promise, keeping his business separate from our family life, never bringing the darker aspects of his world into our home. I knew they existed, knew that his power still stemmed from sources I could never fully condone. But I'd made my choice to love the man in his entirety, even the parts that remained in shadow. Penny for your thoughts? Alexander's voice came from behind me, his arms circling my waist as he pulled me against his chest. Just watching the children, I said, leaning into his embrace. They grow so fast. His hand splayed possessively over my abdomen, where the faintest curve had just begun to show. Soon there will be 1 more to watch. The pregnancy had been unexpected, but welcomed with joy by both of us. A son, according to the latest ultrasound. A child who would bridge our worlds completely, born of the love that had grown between us against all odds. Have you thought more about names? He asked, his breath warm against my ear. I was thinking Antonio, I suggested. After your grandfather. I felt rather than saw his smile. Father would approve. And you? He turned me in his arms, his gray eyes, once so intimidating, now filled with a love that still took my breath away. I approve of anything that makes you happy, Mia Cara. You make me happy, I said simply. Despite everything, despite who you are and what you do. You make me happy, Alexander. And you've given me a second chance at life. He kissed me gently, at family, at love. Across the garden, Lily spotted us and came running, her dark curls bouncing, the gold bracelet, sized down to fit her small wrist, catching the sunlight. "Papa," she called, the name she'd given Alexander after our small private wedding 3 months ago. "Look what I found." Alexander lifted her into his arms with practiced ease, examining the flower she thrust toward him with exaggerated interest. The sight of them together, my daughter and the man who had become her father in every way that mattered, filled me with a complicated joy. Our beginning had been dark, fraught with manipulation and fear. David's death would always haunt the edges of our story, a reminder of the violence Alexander was capable of. The world he inhabited remained dangerous, filled with enemies and threats I could never fully understand. But here, in this moment, watching him with Lily, feeling our son move within me, surrounded by the family we'd built together, I found peace with my choice. I had asked Alexander to tell me his name that first night, and in the months since he had shown me all the names he answered to. Businessman, criminal, protector, lover, father. And I had chosen to love them all. As the sun began to set over the Vega estate, casting long shadows across the garden where our children played, I placed my hand over Alexander's, where it rested protectively on my growing belly. Whatever darkness had brought us together, we had forged something bright and real from it, a love powerful enough to redeem even the most complicated of beginnings. By dawn, the streets had once been silent with fear at the mention of the Vega name, but here, in the growing twilight of our private world, there was only the sound of children's laughter and the promise of a future built on second chances.